I've been a fan of the Insta360 GO 2 since its release in 2021, a tiny little camera that's fun to use. There's really nothing else quite like it on the market, making it my default solution for situations that require something smaller and lighter than a conventional action camera. Yet Insta360 have taken things a step further with their latest iteration, the GO 3. As much as I like the GO 2, it's not without its drawbacks, meaning workarounds are required to get the best from it. It has a very weak battery life when used standalone, so it comes with an AirPod style charging case to make it more usable. There's also no screen, so you have to pair it with the Insta360 smartphone app to frame your shots and review your footage, which can be a pain when out in the field. So, enter the Insta360 GO 3, which looks to solve these issues. It has a new action pod that adds a tilting touchscreen, as well as a significantly larger battery pack in both the pod and the camera itself. There's also a boost in video resolution and some clever new design tweaks that should make it quicker and easier to set up. All very welcome additions. Plastic in construction, the camera unit itself looks almost identical to its predecessor at a glance, but it's bulked up a bit this time round. This is mainly due to the larger 310mAh battery that's inside, replacing the 210mAh pack in the GO 2. But there's also an additional microphone, a beeper that lets you know when you've started and stopped recording, and a more prominent status LED now moved to the bottom of the device. It's marginally bigger in every dimension, and it's also about 10 grams heavier. For most people, this is no big deal at all, and you'll barely notice it in practice, although it does unfortunately mean the GO 3 isn't compatible with any of the existing GO 2 mounts. Just like the GO 2, there's no expandable memory here either, meaning you're stuck with what you originally pay for. On the plus side though, we retain that removable lens cover, and replacements as well as filters are readily available. And we also keep that signature magnetic rear, slightly rubberized for added grip. The magnet is rather strong, just like it was with the GO 2, and coupled with the GO 3's light weight, means it can be magnetically mounted wherever you find a compatible metal surface. Notice two very small new recesses in the top and bottom of the rear side though, part of Insta360's new magnetic attachment system, which we'll come back to in just a moment. For now though, the most obvious design difference when compared to the predecessor is the new action pod, which replaces the GO 2's clamshell style charging case. This unit essentially acts as a charging case, interface for adjusting settings and live view capture, and even a remote for the GO 3 all rolled into one. A cavity on the front is clearly shaped to accept the GO 3 camera module itself, which is magnetically drawn and locked inside, now creating a more typical action camera style design. Even with the GO 3 in place, the entire unit is about the same size as a GoPro, yet still comes in at around 20 grams lighter than the Hero 11 Black. There are 3 buttons on the pod, a record button up top, while on the side a power button and a quick switch mode select button, all with a nice tactile click when pressed. On the opposite side, a USB-C port for charging and data transfer, as well as a release latch that must be pressed to release the camera module from the action pod itself. A nice touch, meaning the unit can be used in more extreme environments without the fear of losing the main camera module itself. The star of the show though is on the rear, a 2.2-inch flip-up touch screen which can be used to change settings, watch your clips and frame your shots. A nice strong hinge means it stays put rather firm too. More on this later. So while the design of the entire system does look promising, if you are looking to use this around water, note that while the GO 3 camera module itself is waterproof up to 5 meters, the action pod is only splash proof, so it can't be submerged. Hence, when used in the action camera style configuration, you are very limited on or around water, which could be a deal breaker for some, although thankfully a waterproof housing is available should the need arise. Moving on to the bottom of the action pod, we find similar latching holes that we saw on the camera module itself, and this forms the basis of Insta360's new magnetic mounting system. The GO 3's lightweight means it can be magnetically mounted wherever you find a compatible metal surface, turning any magnetic surface into a makeshift tripod for steady, hands-free capture, and while the action pod is magnetic too, it's a little too heavy to mount sideways. Whether you're looking to mount the entire action pod or just want a more secure mounting for the GO 3 alone, the new clamp-style mounting system comes in incredibly handy, and fortunately the mounts included in the package cover the most common mounting situations as well. There's the magnetic pendant mount, which was pioneered by the Go 2 and later copied by the DJI Action 2. You wear this accessory under your shirt like a necklace, and it allows you to attach the Go 3 to your chest as if by magic. This time round it has a new silicone cover that keeps the cord tidy. You can wrap the cord around the pendant like a yo-yo, and the soft silicone sleeve keeps it in place. It's a really thoughtful touch. The easy clip mount makes a comeback here too, although it's been redesigned to accommodate the larger Go 3. This mount is designed to clip to the brim of a cap, and the Go 3 magnetically attaches to it for hassle-free POV shots. Finally, there's a two-parter in the form of a ball-headed 1/4" 20 tripod adapter and a reusable self-adhesive sticky baseplate. The adapter attaches to either the Go 3 for a smaller, more compact setup, or the base of the Action Pod itself, with Insta360's new latching magnetic quick-release mounting system. This feels more than a little inspired by DJI's mounting solution for the Osmo Action 3, but that's fine by me because it works really well. The units snap together with a satisfying click, and the two small levers lock them into place for extra security. These are spring-loaded and can be squeezed to remove the unit quick and easy. A really nice system that works really well. Anyways, moving on, when it comes to using the system, the Insta360 GO 3 is a super simple gadget in itself. One button does the trick, powering it up, down, and starting or stopping capture. It can get a little confusing with what the camera is doing, even with that status LED, so combine the Go 3 with its Action Pod, and on top of traditional ergonomics, its screen operates just like that of a GoPro, unlocking easy-to-use touchscreen mode selection tools, control over granular settings, and the ability to play back content, all stuff we find on a standard full-sized action camera. The touch controls are also intuitive, borrowing the menu system from other Insta360 action cameras and tuning it to the Go 3's capabilities. Within the settings, you can even do things on the touch display that you can't find in the smartphone app, such as turn off the LED light on the front of the camera and mute the beeping noise. So not only can we change settings directly on the unit this time, without having to pull out the smartphone app, which I personally did dislike, we can switch between all shooting modes, and while all the previous shooting modes are available, including time-lapse, slow motion and so on, there are a few additional modes added this time too, such as pre-recording, which allows you to capture either 10, 15 or 30 seconds of video before you hit record, as well as loop recording, great for vehicle dashcam style use. You can also now schedule record times. For example, if you want to shoot a time-lapse of the sunrise but don't fancy getting up that early, you can set it and forget it with this new feature. Again, it's a bit of a niche one, and not every user will benefit from this addition, but certain people will be really pleased with this. So, while the Action Pod and its display screen works wonderfully well with very responsive touch sensitivity and can be flipped up nicely for vlogging style video capture, it actually connects to the Go 3 wirelessly using Bluetooth, even when it's physically mounted in its housing. This does mean you get occasional lag and pixelation of the video preview, especially when using the most aggressive stabilization settings. However, it also means that the pod can be used as a remote wireless monitor for the Go 3, and that's a worthy trade-off in my opinion. This means that you can mount the Go 3 on your helmet, chest or wherever else you fancy, and use the Action Pod to wirelessly change settings and ensure your framing is on point. You can already do this with the Go 2 and the Insta360 smartphone app, and you can still use the app here too, but this is a much more hassle-free and convenient way of doing things, mainly because the two units are always paired, and you don't need to wait for your phone to find the connection, albeit with only a closer Bluetooth range of around 5 meters or so, but on the flip side it uses little extra battery life too. I like the small added touches too. For instance, when you power down the Action Pod, you can choose to switch everything off or just the pod off, leaving the camera on and recording while you save the pod's battery for use later. A nice added touch. When it comes to performance, the biggest advantage the Go 3 offers over its predecessor, at least when it comes to image quality, is the fact it can shoot video at 2.7K rather than just 1440p. Footage from the Insta360 GO 3 does look better than the Go 2 as well, no matter whether you're recording in 1440p or 2.7K. As far as I'm aware, the camera uses the same sensor, so it's likely some software magic that's been used to improve the image, but the resulting videos look a bit less grainy and seem to have a wider dynamic range. It's still nowhere near the quality of GoPro or the Insta360 One RS of course, but that's to be expected from something this small. Exposure, white balance and saturation are generally strong in the Go 3's 2.7K video, and dynamic range is competitive even if it isn't exceptional. Videos have a pleasing amount of contrast while still holding on to some shadow detail, and the camera exposes for subjects relatively well even when they're backlit. As is usually the case with Insta360 products, the stabilization is also very impressive, and that's especially important on a tiny camera like this. The Go 3 can lock the horizon no matter how much you spin it, or it can simply take the edge off with flow state. There are now 3 levels that you can select in the camera, allowing you to choose the right amount of stabilization for the activity that you're recording. The higher you go, the more lag you can expect in the live feed of the action pod mind. But in good lighting, stabilization is just about perfect. It's only when the light gets low that you start to see judders from footsteps in the footage, which to be fair is an issue that affects most action cameras. Audio is a mixed bag. It's good enough to capture your voice or the surroundings, all dependent upon the wind and your environment really, but there's no external mic option, so it is what it is. Anything more and you'll want a completely external audio capture solution. Nevertheless, while all video modes work wonderfully well, and there's a lot more of them this time round, providing a great choice for differing video projects, one of the standout features of the Go 3 is its free frame video mode, which was previously called Pro Video with the Go 2. This is generally my go-to video mode every time, since it allows you to shoot first and make the decisions later, similar to what you can do with the almost square sensor on the GoPro Hero 11. In this mode, you shoot your video as normal, then in the app you can choose whether to render the video in horizontal, vertical or square format, as well as change the field of view and stabilization modes. It's my favourite way to shoot by far, since you can worry about the orientation, stabilization and which platform you're outputting to, all after taking the video. Thanks to the wide angle view, you can even move the image around a little to make sure you get the shot framed just right. Of course, the camera is completely compatible with the smartphone app as well as the fantastic Insta360 Studio desktop software, and while this does add extra post-processing steps to your workflow, the flexibility it adds is fantastic. It should be noted that 1440p at 50 frames per second is your maximum available capture resolution when using freeform video mode though. So all that added post-processing flexibility does come at a cost, although it's perfect for most online projects and social media, and still my go-to mode. Of course, if you'd rather not the extra post-processing flexibility and want straight video from the camera, then 2.7K at 30 is ideal. It's a shame 2.7K at 60 frames per second isn't an option, although throughout my testing I've had absolutely no overheating or any other such issues. It just works, and works reliably. As for battery life, the Go 3 charges while it's docked in the action pod, so if you tend to take short clips, you won't run into any battery issues until the action pod runs out, with capture time of the Go 3 being around 30 to 40 minutes on a single charge, and the action pod adding an impressive couple of hours of capture to that. All in all, the Go 2 was a great little unit, and the Go 3 takes the same formula but makes it way easy to use thanks to the new action pod and its touchscreen display. The new magnetic mounting system is great, the battery life is better, the resolution is higher, and the image is more configurable and cleaner than its predecessor. There's a lot to love here. It's not all perfect though. The price keeps rising with each new iteration, and it's now comparable to a full-on action camera, even the likes of the GoPro for instance, which has higher resolutions, more capture modes, more everything really, making this more of a tough sell. That said, this is a different class of camera here with an easier use case, clipping it quickly into tighter spaces, capturing and worrying about video settings such as field of view and stabilization later. I can also tell how much R&D went into this design. The addition of the features like a wireless touchscreen display obviously came at a cost too. It's also worth noting that the Go 3 is a touch less portable than its predecessor. The old AirPods style charging case had a shape that was very easy to slip into your pocket, and that meant that the Go 2 was very easy to take with you. The Go 3, in its action pod, will still fit in most pockets, but it's now a chunky block and the lens is exposed, which means that I'd be very hesitant to carry it in the same way. Even so, despite the high cost, I really do like this thing. It's undoubtedly the best mini action camera around, especially now that it's not quite so challenging to use. Saying that, if you're after the highest resolutions, want a totally waterproof experience, or just want the flexibility of using memory cards, then you'll be better served elsewhere. On the other hand, if you're after a tiny camera that's easy to use, want to place it in the smallest of spaces yet monitor with a remote viewfinder, or just want the ability to shoot first and frame or change view and stabilization settings later, then the Insta360 GO 3 is ideal.